welcome everybody. Thanks for coming for the presentation. I'm going to talk to you about following Drupal core development and if that is really possible to read every commit that happens in Drupal core. And I will try to take you in a journey that I have been for a few years. So yeah, I will start with a small presentation of myself. So my name is Marco Villegas. You can find me on D.O, Smartville07. I have been there for a while now. It's been almost 18 years this year. I have been part of the Git migration team from CBS, so a while ago, and many other small things that you can find in my profile. Right now I'm working with the nice team in Tag One Consulting, and yeah, so let's see what we are going to be going over. I will basically try to talk to you about these 4 topics, and there will be a couple of interludes to talk a bit about a couple of things that I find really interesting around the topic. So first, why is a good idea to read changes? What resources do we have around them? How fast is really Drupal core going? And some experimentation that I have been doing myself. I will give you 1 minute just in case this is the URL of the presentation I'm doing. If you want to follow along in your device, it is there. It's just an HTML page, so you can follow the links especially that are in the presentation there. Okay, so the first thing I would like to say is thanks. Thanks to the Drupal core development team, because this talk is a meta talk about the work that they do, even if I contribute from time to time. It is Drupal core is a really big group effort of many parties. I also want to make a small disclaimer that I will be talking about Drupal code core contributions, but there are more contributions than only code, but this presentation is focused on that side. So let's start on why it's a good idea to try to follow what Drupal core is doing. And I will focus that on 3 fronts. First, I would say the technical front. So we can see directly the new features that are getting added inside Drupal core, and that allows us, especially if you, for some reason, maintain a big size of custom code that you need to maintain for different clients for different reasons. That is something that will allow you to react accordingly. Maybe some feature is being deprecated in Drupal core or is moved into contrib, or even something new that will allow you to actually change the way that you are doing things to do it in a better way. That's really a good reason to try to follow that. On the other side is learning, because as new APIs are being added, sometimes internally in Drupal core, it's also really a good exposure to the new APIs, because Drupal itself consumes a lot of its internal API. And when you see that on new changes added, you can see how that internal API is being used, and it can be used from your contributed modules or from your custom code. And that's really useful. On the other side is participation, because if you follow what is happening on the core logs, on the commits, we have information around who is doing the work in that specific issue. And even now that we have the commit credits in D.O, we also can see what is the companies, what is the organizations that are behind those individuals that are doing that work. And that is useful in many ways. One way is that if you are working on one specific thing and you want to improve in Drupal core, you know who to contact for a different set of, a subset of the problem that you want to approach. So that's also really useful. And I may be biased, but it's also fun to just read commit logs of a really nice project. There are many projects that has really interesting commits. So with that, let me do the first interlude. I started this one because I wanted to say that I'm not the first that is trying to do this. Like many people, Drupal has more than 20 years now, I think, and many people have been doing this. So I will show you first. This is the first attempt I know that someone trying to do this. And it was Moshe Weissman that created DrupalDigest.com. And this was a site, at that time we were using CVS, that contained, remember CVS has only two repositories, right? Core contributions, and you will, and he will just select a set of commits and say like, this is interesting. And it was a form of curation of what you should be focusing on or what may be interesting. And that, in this case, is about a contrib module, the was OG galleries, but also you will see changes over the user module, changes over devel, and many more. But this project lasted, I think, only 2007. And the next year it died, but Greg Nattison, that I saw in this conference after a while of not seeing him, started this Drupal dashboard domain, which contains a really similar code about that. And it's the same idea in this case of the Apache Solar module, but also added the idea of important module releases. So not only commits, but it's a different way of looking at information. And in this case, it was about releases that may be interesting to look at across core and contrib. And this is the one snapshot. All these snapshots are naturally from archive.org. If you don't recognize the banner, it's because they are from a while ago. This is the one that I found with some team of another time of Drupal. So yeah, with that I wanted to say I'm not the first that have tried to do this. Many people have been doing things like this since then. So let's talk about what resources do we have around to try to do this following of Drupal core. Naturally, the main source is Git, so you can actually just read what is in Git, read the changes that have been happening there. Now that we use GitLab, it's about that URL will tell you, that will show you the list of commits aggregated by date, and you can click on every commit, and then you can see what is happening exactly there. That's the simplest possible approach that I think we have now that you can follow. Because you just need a web browser. But that's not the only resource that we have. We also have release notes. For instance, the URL of the first 11 release contained quite useful information. And this is really, really great that the set of core maintainers make a really big effort to try to condense what is happening over every release that they make of Drupal core. And this is really great, but naturally sometimes the set of changes is so big that it cannot fit. They need to exclude some information. So this is, for instance, this is the section about update information that you may need to be aware of. But that's not the only resource. There's also change records, right? If you're not aware of this functionality and you maintain a contrib module, every time you do a backwards incompatible change or a change in the API, you may want to create this. It's not only for Drupal core, but this list changes URL will give you for every issue in Drupal core that change API, there is a change record, and Drupal core team is really do a really good job trying to do that, and because the issue is not closed until the change record is added. So one example of this is this one that is about blog content test base, and basically the first argument of a method was changed from a string into an array, and usually what happens is that there is some time that both are used and valid, but after some time the original is deprecated. So it's important to be aware of these things. If you are, in this case, if you were doing some blog content test based extension test, you need to be aware of that. And naturally, Drupal has a lot of issues, and issues is the first source of information I feel that we have about the changes that happen in Drupal core, because they contain a lot of discussion of how any feature is being added. They have more in-depth description and also lots of metadata, because it's you have the usually relations with other issues either in the comments or in the metadata about parent issues, or even only related ones. And also the credits about who is working on that, of have worked there, are there in the issue credits related to that issue. So that's really, really important information that you just can go and see. And so a commit log message looks like this, and contains the issue number, the set of participants, and one title. But the issue contains a lot more information. It contains a lot more metadata about the issue that will give you clues of what is happening there. And this is naturally really, really useful. So with that, I will go to a second small interlude. I have been thinking about this topic for a bit. And the first time I published something was in 2008. I found one friend actually from a different open source project showed me this software called Scotsfarm. And I did post something on Drupal.org forums at that time were actively used. So I posted that there, and there contained, I just wanted to make one of these videos. And what is that? So it's better explained. There are some links there if you want to see the whole story. But it's better to see. Well, it's not that visible, but let me try to, yeah, I will speed it up a bit so it is, hopefully you can start seeing something there. So what this tries to do is try to condense the information of what is happening over a given source code. And it takes the input of the commit logs and tries, based on that, create a video where the gravity is where the most influence is. So, for instance, at the center, you can actually see Dries and Webchick there doing the core commits at the time. We are in 2009. If you see the bottom right, there is a date of how this is happening over time. There's also some bars that on the background that are not that visible here in the projector, but they contain the number of changes that have been added of a given file. And this is one way to summarize the whole history of Drupal. For someone that has been really involved, they can recognize moments like, oh, this is when Drupal 7 started, and when you see Drupal 8 started, you will see like a constellation of things happening at the same time. So it's really fun, and it's something that I really liked at the time. But then in 2010, I started a small project to try to parse things out inside inside the commits of Drupal core. Those are links to different blog posts that I have made in the past, and the project that in Didero, the last one, Drupal Contribution Analyzer, is actually it contains the actual source code of what I was doing in that project. So let me try to summarize what I was doing in that project here. So basically the Git history, I was parsing it a bit to be able to extract the information, because unlike other projects that contain the author in the commit author, we have that in the commit message. So we need to extract that from there. And I created a small SQLite database, and then created a bunch of things, including graphs in HTML with a bit of JavaScript, and also some stats files with information that can be useful, and then produced even some tag clouds and the custom video based on the XML that was required. That was Java, but it was interesting, the results that I got. And this is an example of a tag cloud from the whole Drupal 7 history, excluding naturally the core committers, Angie and Dries, just because they will be too big compared to the rest. And that is interesting to have a really close understanding of the amount of contribution of different people here. And and this is like not the top, but like the whole set. So it's a little more blurry because a lot more people need to get in. But that was one of the output, the tag clouds. But also I added these graphs that contained the set of commits per month of at different branches. So in this case, it was 7 and 8. It's a bit old, that's why only 7 and 8. But you can see clearly in 2011 was the point when the Drupal 8 started being develop. And also these contributors per month is a really good way to try to track what is the community health, because the amount of contributors, it's a really good indicator of how many people can help. And if this is going down, like we need to do things. More things to reach out, or maybe to people that has been here. So this was an attempt to try to, as you see, is trying to summarize what is happening over the development in several ways. So you can have different input on what is happening, and that is useful for many reasons. So now let me try to get you inside Drupal core and how that has changed over time. So I will try to analyze Drupal core, what is inside and how fast it is changing. So we can see like how fast do we need to read, because we want to follow it. So and to have a really good perspective of that, one interesting exercise is to see what has been inside Drupal core when it started, when it was first published by Dries. And at the start, and this specific commit is the second commit in the whole history, which contained the full set of initial files. That commit was only 29 files, and that is a really small set, naturally. But if you compare that with we have now, we have now almost 20,000 files that we have in Drupal core. And at the start, it was mostly PHP, and now it's still mostly PHP. But we also naturally have a lot more things like Twig and YAML and JavaScript in higher proportions. By the way, this all this information that I will show you when I say 11x is related to March 21, which is that exact commit that is mentioned there. That's where the cut point that I have for this presentation. And another way to see the size of Drupal core is seeing at the set of lines of code. And in the original commit of trees, we have around 4,000 files, and that are mainly PHP. But right now we have around 3 million of lines of code, and it's still mostly PHP, as you can see. But we have also others that are in a lot more proportion. And now that we have an idea about the size that of Drupal core itself, we can think about how fast the commits are being added into Drupal core. So I made a graph trying to summarize this by year. And this is the set of commits that are in Drupal history by year. And it's around 3,600 commits per year. And you see that this that app in 2011 is naturally Drupal 8. And we see that it's up and down, but it's around 3,600 commits per year. And naturally, the last year has just started. That's why it's low, because we're just in March. And another way to look at this is trying to see the number of commits per version, because we are not reading all commits across all branches. We likely want to focus on a few set of branches, or maybe even one. So this is a graph that has, based on some heuristics, it's around 1,500 commits per version per year that is happening. And that big peak at the middle is naturally Drupal 8. And you can see that, yeah, it's around 1,500 commits per year. But we may not want to focus on the whole history, so let's focus on the recent commits per version. So here are the last 3 branches, and we have 9, 10, and 11. And it's around 1,200 commits per version per year. And now we have a really more tangible number of commits. And if it is around 3 or 4 commits per day that is happening in the last active version of Drupal core. So it's around 3 or 4 commits a day. That sounds doable, right? So let's examine a bit more what that means. So if we try to think about the amount of files that has been changing of those commits, because maybe they are changing 1,000 files at a time, and that will be hard to read. But that's not the case. It's for 11, and this is a table that contains for all time. We have around 77, and the last 4 years 130, and that's related to other reasons. But 11, which is the one that we are focusing on since the start of the development of 11, that in this case is that specific commit that I mentioned, is around 78 files changed per day. This is not per commit, but aggregating per day. And another way to look at this in the same way is not only files, but how many lines has been changed on those days. And it is around 800 or 900 lines that has been changed, added, and around 1,000 something that is being added. So those are the set of changes that you need to read on a given day. And even if it sounds like not that small, it's not that much really, because most of the changes are usually in parallel in different parts of Drupal that do the same thing. The Drupal core team is really good at trying to focus what is happening in a given change, so it's really focused on one thing. So, if we need to summarize what we have seen in the previous slides, I would say that you want to focus on the latest stable version of the latest stable branch that is being the latest branch in development, which in this case is 11 right now. And you will need to read around 900, maybe 1,000 lines added, deleted, over 3 or 4 commits a day. That's probably the effort that is needed to be done here. And based on the data, it's mostly PHP what you will be reading being changed. So, do you think that's doable? So, I would like to try to start talking a bit about some experiments, and just before that, I want to focus on the simplest possible path. And I remember from a while Angie Byron, Webchick, mentioning, but that's the first things that you do every day, right? Like you go to the computer, do a git fetch, and see what has happened over Drupal core last day. And that's the simpler way that you can have to actually see what is happening, because you literally have all the data that you need there. But as I mentioned, there are many resources around those changes, and Drupal core commits at some point was decided that it's easier to just refer an issue number, and not all the contextual information about the change really lives on the commit logs, in the commit message. It lives in the issue, and that contains the whole context of why some decision was taken and do it in one way and not in another. There is also the change records that I mentioned and more issues around that. So I was thinking there should be a better way to do this because I need to go to different places to do this. So a couple of years ago, I started another project. All these projects are in D.O, so you will find links. Their core logs is a link. In this time, I was intentionally trying to be really specific and focused. So I didn't want to really start doing many things. I really wanted the information to be really focused. So I discarded the tag clouds, the custom videos, and also tried to focus on information that may be highly valuable. So instead, right now, it's the scripts that I do have in that repository that is linked in the previous slide. What they are doing is trying to consume the data that is inside Git commit history. And based on that, it is trying to create a set of plain files with different set of information. This is inspired on the Git model. If you see the .git commit, you will see different objects in different directories. So it's kind of adopting that architecture. But it's not. I'm not only trusting the Git history. I'm based on the information in the issue numbers in the commit messages. I'm retrieving more information about each of the specific commits. So Drupal.org provides an API that you can consume, and I'm using just a small client to try to produce a different set of data that I will show you in a bit, but basically to try to see what it has been changed, who has been contributing, which organizations are around that specific change. But also, I'm relying on manual input because sometimes things are better explained directly. So I am actually doing some explanation of a given commit as a separate set of text that can be reused. And at the end, I'm producing a set of journals for every day. I'm trying to produce a summary of what has happened in that day in specific inside Drupal core. And it's important to also mention that all this information is after the fact. It is already in Drupal core because there are many things that are in development at any point in Drupal core, and sometimes they take 1 week, sometimes they take 10 years, but things are available there. So yeah, all this information is really useful. So let me try to show you some of that output. So oops. So this is the project that I am mentioning. It's core logs, and it just basically has a link there, and the code is available there. And as you see, it's a set of directories that you contain the data, and one for scripts, and also some. Let me make it bigger, and some extra information there. But let's focus on something more tangible. So this is the page that is generated with GitLab pages that GitLab itself provides, and the Drupal Association gladly maintains, so we can use that. So I'm basically using Markdown files, then converting that via Pandoc, that is a program that can convert many formats. And with that, I produce a set of HTML files. And if we go to the first there, you can see like this is a sample output of what would be one day, and the last that is there is from March 24. And I try to provide this is part of the manual input that I'm mentioning, like this overview of what has happened in this day, and maybe like sometimes you are not interested in the whole set, you're interested in one part. But I also provide relevant links to everything that has been happening, including, well, the title is the commit message, and you have link to the issue and the commit itself in GitLab if you want to see it there, and one explanation of every commit that is happening there. So let's start with one. Where is my? So this is a simple link to the GitLab issue, to the GitLab commit. So you can actually in your browser explore what has been happening there. And sometimes changes are really small; they are not that scary. So you can actually read this, and it's pretty fine, and you can see the information that is summarized in the other place in a more specific way if you really need to or want to for any reason. And at the end, I'm adding some extra information that I find interesting too. So this day, for instance, you can see there has been 7 commits, and the approach is, at this point, like we are almost no longer using patches. We are still using patches, but yeah, there was 1 patch there and 6 merge requests. And this is really interesting. Shorting running issue was 1 hour, so from start to close, and that is really great because issues has been historically not that fast to close, but the longest one, as you see, is 3 years. But it's great to see that progress, and this is, and yeah, let me provide more information just in a bit about that. And you can see that the summary of 12 people have been involved this day in making things happen. 2 of them were volunteers, and 7 organizations are also part of the contributors of this specific day. And you can see who in which organization, because all this information is inside commit credits in Diro. And I'm just parsing and putting it there. And you can also see there, I find that also really valuable. You can see the maintainers that are accepting the changes into Drupal core. They are doing the commits to actually put the changes in Drupal core, closing the issues. I'm also adding the parent issues. This was a request that I got the last time I talked about this from B. Brala. That he suggested this, and that is really useful because it's a way to see what are we working on. And usually you have a parent and a lot of small issues that have really atomic changes on what you need to do to actually close that big meta. And also I'm adding tags. Those are the tags that are in Diro, but I'm also manually adding a set of tags. And that is useful to try to categorize things over time. I don't yet have an interface to that. I can also, I will probably add that soon, but that is, at this point, you can see, this is the one thing that I wanted to mention. The needs review queue initiative, I keep seeing and seeing it day after day. They are great, so thank you because they are really pushing things so they are actually closed, and that is great. And that is what I meant before, that the shortest running issue, I feel like that is the main explanation, is that initiative, it is really good at trying to get things done, and that is great. So yeah, some more tags, and this is really minimal information about the actual Git logs in a really short format, so they can be inspected more if you really want to. As you can see, I'm using the UTC basically to see the dates, because we are a global project. So what date? It needs to be the global date. So that's an example of how this interface, this small set of scripts and some extra work to produce this extra metadata can be useful. At least, like, even just for me, this is really useful because I get to know in more detail what is happening in Drupal core. But the last time I talked about this, I didn't mention that I'm really open to contributions. So if someone really wants to, that project is open. You just need to open a merge request in GitLab, and I will be glad to include changes that you have added. And it seems like we do have some time, so maybe it's a good idea to do a small demo of how I actually produce this. So, but just before that, let's go over some closing words. So the first thing I would like to say is thank you, Drupal contributors. Thank you, community at large, because this is analysis of data about Drupal core development, but that's naturally not possible without Drupal core development happening. And I appreciate the effort of the whole community to make that happen, especially maintainers that go over the changes every day. For doing it specifically, I think it's doable. You probably want to focus on the latest development branch, which is 11. Again, it's 3 or 4 commits a day that you need to go over, and it's around 1,000 lines of added or deleted code that it's sounds doable, and mostly are PHP changes that you are going to be reading. And maybe you want to follow core logs. By the way, that so the output here, I'm producing also this journal RSS. So if you still have an RSS reader, you can follow the set of changes there. So in the few minutes, I can either that we have, I would like to do a small demo of how I do this, in case someone is interested on contributing too. But also, I would like for you to start thinking about questions that you have on the presentation. So if feel free to just let me know if you have a question, but otherwise I will start with a small demo. Yes, please go ahead.
Actually posting this online so I can go to this and see this now? Or is this something you just do for yourself?
I do it for myself in public. So it is completely in. So it is there. So let me quickly.
How much time are you spending daily?
It's around half an hour, or so. So it's manageable. I don't do it every day, and life happens. So sometimes you need to do other things, but the it is a name that I have to just to close this gap, and I'm doing. It's around half an hour that you need to read 3 or 4 commits and understand what is happening, and it can vary. Sometimes there are really really big commits that are getting added. Yeah. Okay. So what I have here is I'm not showing this. So let me.
If you go to the project page, there's a link to the public view that he's showing right now.
Yeah, and also, so maybe let me just go back to the. So you will have all the links. Whoa, what happens? So let me go back in the presentation itself in Discord, just in case you have all the links to all the places that I am talking about. But yeah, so let's go to more. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
You seem to be excited to show us the sausage behind this. But I'm curious. Ben, you've got way more time than I do. You're reading this every day, and having what's the benefit that you get of keeping up with the current stuff? Is this for someone that's really a core contributor, or just a general computer science person trying to stay interested? Because I go to all this stuff when I need it. When something
I see.
breaks, I need to fix something.
Yes, indeed. And the main reasons I find are related technically is that I'm in that way I see what is happening, so I see what new features are being added, so I can be aware of how I should do differently things that I have done in the past. Maybe I need to adjust to do something new. If when I see a new module going to Drupal core, I can start poking around it because maybe it is useful. But one really good use case, and maybe one of the main ones for Drupal people working in professional environments, is that sometimes you need to maintain custom code that is not trivial, and maybe you maintain contributed modules, and naturally all those are affected by what Drupal core does. So being aware of what are the changes that are happening, it's an excellent way to be prepared and do the changes in advance, and maybe find better solutions for the problems that we already solved in the past. So it's And I already mentioned I also really like to be aware of who is doing what, and that is something I really like. And I'm also biased. I really like doing this, but that is arbitrary. So with that, let me move my terminal there. Okay, let me make it a bit bigger. So hopefully that looks. So that's the project. It's a set, as I mentioned, a set of scripts. It's not that big, and if you look at the scripts directory, you will find a few. DCL and Drupal.org, those two are bash scripts. They're not that big, really. Uh, this is important because the bash scripts are like DCL. That is the main thing that I use. The main CLI that I implement is less than 800 lines of bash shell script, really, and the Drupal.org is just a client for the API in Diddo, also reading with curl and shell script, so it's really simple. And the other script is not really being used. And let me execute missing journals so you can see some output. So naturally, I sometimes have a hard time like trying to follow myself, and this is the missing journals that so let's try to choose one. This date, for instance, I have not created an entry, so let's or make it more fun. Let's focus on something more recent. So let's choose that one. And yep. And I was working on something, so let's put that away for now. Oops. Yeah, not used to this moving my head when I type. So what I do is this DCL. This is a small wrapper, and let me just do it like this so you can see the output. It is like a lot of the lines in that shell script is documentation. So you will see. Oops. So it's not doing this. Okay, so I will just go up. So basically, you can provide a set of commands, and we have one that is draft journal and another that is read day. We'll try to get the information from Diddo, and there is another field commit, field day, open day issues. Let's focus on a few. There are naturally high level and low level ones. So again, I'm quite influenced by the Git idea of porcelain and core. So and there are some examples there on how to use it. So if you want to start reading one commit, this will basically process what is inside this commit, and that's basically what you want to do. But the day-to-day is something like this, like read this date and then field day. That will, it's an interface to go over. So let's just execute it so you can see it. So again, let's choose this date and let's do DCL read. Oh, it's not here. So okay. So yep, let's. Oh, it's not there. Excellent. Oh, by the way, before I forgot, so this is a small wrapper to do this, but basically this is passing another directory with the actual core commits, right? The source of the Git repository. And this with browser is because I open a window with the ISO number when I want to get the information. So, yeah. DCL read commit read day and the date. And with that, what is happening is basically that it's getting information from Git itself, but also from the D.O API. And if network is being fine and that there were not that many commits, this will take less than 10 seconds. In the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free.
You store that in the database, in a SQL-like
That-
database or
that-
something like that?
That's a great question. I try to, like as I mentioned on the diagram, I really want to make this easy, and I don't want to deal with database, so I'm doing this in plain files. So it's in the same repository. So for instance, and maybe the git log-p can give you an idea. So for instance, this is the last, well, this was a syntax fix, but this is, for instance, metadata that I produce with that read commit. And you can see one file for that commit, that is the git committer. And that file, I just add that. There's another one that is called git numstat with the output of that command. So we know how many changes have happened over which files. And another with the subject of the message, another with the issue related, if there is one. There are really few commits that do not have issues, but there still are. And the approach, the issue contributors, and all this is generated by that script that I left running that hopefully it has finished. Excellent. So if I do a git status, and it's a bit, you can see that a lot of files have been added to the metadata. And let me add those. And you can see similar output of what I showed before. And then after doing that, I just add a commit with that. And we were doing, so let me put this bigger again. And we were with this date. So in the same way, we want to do field day. We probably will not finish this because we don't want to spend half an hour on this. But what this does is just open me a window with the issue that is related to the first commit in that day. And I can see, oh, this is about this specific thing, JavaScript errors on Drupal behavior active links, and also opens me the diff of what has happened that day. So I can inspect, okay, what is the actual changes that happened here? And yeah, it is a change over the active links JavaScript file, and you also have the change in the test, and that's it. It's not that much, right? So we go, and then I produce, I also open this window. This is the output of one of the commands in that DCL script, what is on the left. And this just the title, the URL, the commit, the tags that has been used, people that has been involved with, the approach and the numstat that we already created. And on the right, I have this about, xabout, which is one of the files that I fill manually. So I try to explain in this file what has happened in that, in this commit, right? That is being shown in this diff, and I basically will try to explain that, and then I fill another one that is called X tags, which I add some extra tags that are part of the output of that journal. And that's it. After that, I create a DCL. Well, after going over everyone, I create a draft journal, and it's markdown at the end that you will see. And let's open one of those just in case you don't believe that is the case. So the one I show here is 24, right? March 24. So that actually looks like this. So journal 24 March. And this is basically the markdown that I end up editing, and it's just a title, an overview of what I think can be a summary of what happened that day, and details about each of them. Each of the things that I've added in that X about is part of each of the sets, for instance here, of that specific commit. Yeah, and that's basically what I have been trying to do, and that's the same summary that you have seen in the HTML page, and that's it. So any more questions, because I know we are approaching the end of the session. Please.
Can you think of an example recently where looking at these gave you something that you wouldn't have known otherwise that helped you in your daily work?
That's a good question. I think recently I have been not that active doing this. So the last example that I can find that I find really memorable was the day that is something related to external logging is being added to Drupal core, and that was when the API related to performance testing, the underlying vendor library was added, and I was completely unaware that that was happening, and that was actually during DrupalCon Barcelona, and I was like, when is this started to happen? And I went to the issue and see, and then I realized, oh, there is this performance initiative that is doing this testing, and that DrupalCon I actually started my first issue related to performance testing in Drupal core, because it was like something like I felt attracted to. Any more questions? Yes.
Have you thought of automating any of this in AI, since that's all big, and it seems potentially useful?
I was expecting that question. I have thought about it, and I intentionally don't want to add any input for the explanations. I really want to do it manually. And I know that it's possible to automate this, because like summarizing is one of the best things that I can do. But I find value since I am already collecting doing a lot of scripting to collect data. I feel like that is the best way to provide value to anyone reading this, is try to act, and it's also for me, because if I do the synthesis, I understand it better. And so it's part of that. It's even if it is possible to try to automate it, I still prefer to do it manually. Okay, do we have any other question? Well, I hope that you really like the presentation, and again, all resources are available on the presentation itself. There are links to every place, and there is links to this core logs project that I mentioned, where all these lives, and that links, there is the link on the GitLab pages that will get you here. And yeah, you're even welcome to post PRs with more of this if you are inclined to do so. Let me go back to closing and tell you thank you very much for being here.